How's it going, guys? My name is Ace and welcome back to MoneyMetEish. On Friday I put a post up on Instagram alluding to the fact that I would give a report on the SAB Zenzele Kabili scheme that is launching on the 28th of May on Monday. And the response to that post was so overwhelming that I got really excited and I spent the last 36 hours just reading prospectus and watching media presentations by the boards. So I have actually finished my report early and it is now Sunday morning and I am bringing it to you. So basically this is just going to be what my opinion is on the scheme as a whole, how it differs fundamentally from SAB Zenzele, and what your options are in terms of whether you should buy it or not. Of course, this is not financial advice. This is by no means a definitive you should or you shouldn't buy this scheme. This is just my opinion on a scheme of social relevance, let's say. And whether or not I will be advising my family members, the ones who are able to buy these shares, to buy the shares or not. So, without any further ado, because this is going to be quite a lengthy video, just letting you know up front, I will be putting timestamps to the different segments down below. So if you would like to find out where you can buy them, you can find that in the timestamp, my opinions on it, and how it fundamentally differs between SAB Zenzele and SAB Zenzele Kabili. You can find all of those in the timestamp down below. So without any further ado, let's go. Before we get into SAB Zenzele Kabili, let's have a look at what the previous scheme SAB Zenzele was. So in 2010, SAB Miller offered a BBBEE scheme to allow retailer investors, not retail investors the way we understand them today as being people who use platforms like Robinhood or Easy Equities, retailer investors who were people involved in the liquor industry, so your Shabin owners, your bottle store owners, your guys who are transporting alcohol from place to place, as well as soft drink employees, to buy shares into SAB Miller, the company, and basically participate in the profits of the company through a separate holding company, which was SAB Zenzele. So SAB Zenzele held 3.25% of SAB Miller shares at the end. Basically what you would do is you would give your initial investment, and I'm sure everyone has seen the headlines everywhere saying that 100 Rand turned into 77,000 Rand's value, which is mind-blowing, absolutely incredible. The scheme paid out a biannually 25% dividend, and 100 Rand invested gave you exposure to, but not ownership of, 50,000 Rands worth of SAB Miller shares. So basically, you put your money in for a 10-year period, during which you would receive a dividend twice a year of 25%. At the end of the 10-year period, you had an option of either taking your money out or converting your SAB special shares, your shares in SAB Zenzele, into SAB Miller ordinary shares at whatever the exchange or at whatever the price of SAB shares would have been at that time. So let's use the current AbinBev example. If your shares that you are going to get out would have been 10,000 Rand and an SAB Miller share was 1,000 Rand a share, you would get 10 SAB Miller shares if you chose to do that, or you could just take out the money that you put in plus the capital gains that you got. So in that way it turned 100 Rand into 77,000 Rand. It is by far one of the most incredible wealth creating schemes of any kind that I can think of. The 76,000% growth is just mind-blasting. But that scheme came to an end at the sort of beginning of 2020, and it's been pushed back now a year because of Corona. So, now that everybody can sort of get their affairs in order, SAB Miller no longer exists and was bought out in 2016 or 17 by AbinBev, who are now launching the second phase, let's call it, although it is a completely separate company, SAB Zenzele Kabili. SAB Zenzele Kabili is, in my opinion, fundamentally different in that there is no fixed time period, so you won't be getting that capital guarantee, not guarantee, but that capital back at the end of a set amount of time. It's also being freely listed on the JSE BBBEE segment, so people who qualify as black people can buy into this scheme at any time by buying them listed. However, it will be willing buyer, willing seller, so there is no sort of guarantee that you will get the same growth as the last one. I actually personally don't think that it is possible for the growth of SAB Zenzele Kabili to match that of its predecessor for a few simple reasons that we will go into later. I believe the two schemes are fundamentally different because SAB Zenzele was more of a bond structure where you were effectively loaning money to SAB Miller to get a dividend twice a year and your money with whatever growth it had achieved out at the end. Whereas SAB Zenzele Kabili is the complete opposite. You are buying shares in a company which has gotten shares from AbinBev, and your shares are completely separate from the others. SAB Zenzele Kabili is a separate company which the underlying asset is the 0.3% shares it is going to get from AbinBev. So it's often spoken about in the media presentations that one AbinBev share is 1,000 Rand and you can access that for 40 Rand. Your 40 Rand and the 1,000 Rand, you're not buying a 40 Rand, you're not buying a 1,000 Rand share for 40 Rand. The two are not connected. They are not transferable in any way, the way that SAB Zenzele shares were transferable to SAB Miller shares, which is why I believe SAB Zenzele was a much better deal. Absolutely mind-blowing. If you could get in, if you did, hats off to you, congratulations. It was, I don't think we're ever going to see anything like it ever again. But it's also the reason why SAB Zenzele Kabili is not going to live up to expectations, in my opinion. There is no way that 100 Rand in this new scheme is going to be able to equal 77,000 Rand in the future for a few reasons. And that are major events happened in that 10-year period which just cannot happen now. Those include the sale of ABI, Coca-Cola's operations in South Africa, to the Coca-Cola Company, being number one, and the acquisition of SAB Miller by AbinBev for $100 billion being the second one. These two major events unlocked a huge amount of value, which I don't believe can happen again. AbinBev is the largest beer manufacturer in the world, and it is a selling point which is hit upon repeatedly during the presentations and selling points of SAB Zenzele Kabili. But with AbinBev being the size it is, there is no room for growth. And I don't mean no room as in it's not going to grow. I just mean if you are expecting a meteoric rise, you're not going to get it. AbinBev is an extremely mature company, and in the last 5 years has grown at negative 40%. So the AbinBev or the SAB Zenzele Kabili board is kind of boasting about the fact that it is the largest company that manufactures beer in the world, which is true, without giving a background to the fact that there is not much more room to grow. SAB had a much longer runway, SAB Miller that is, had a much longer runway to grow. There was a lot more room to expand, where AbinBev is there, it fills the room already, there's not much more space. The only way that I could see value being unlocked is if it sold off certain parts of the company, like SAB Miller did during the initial acquisition. When AbinBev acquired SAB Miller sold the Miller part of the company to Molson Coors, which then became Coors Miller in the US, and sold its Asian holdings to Asahi in Japan, which also contributed to the unlocking of so much value. AbinBev's acquisition has also created a huge amount of debt for the company, which they are still paying off today. 10 years later, $100 billion is a lot of money for any company. So those are a few reasons why I think the showing of 100 Rand to 77,000 Rand, although it is true for Zenzele, is kind of misleading for Zenzele Kabili. The biggest selling point of SAB Zenzele Kabili, in my opinion, is the dividend. It is paying not the same kind of dividend, from what I can see, as its predecessor did, which was a flat 25% dividend, which is also insane. It's amazing how much money there was for this scheme. It's just absolutely mind-blowing. But it's also understandable since it was focused. It was a much more focused scheme. It focused at people that are adding value to SAB through the sale and distribution of its products, which SAB Zenzele Kabili isn't doing. It's got a much broader scope, and I feel like it loses a little bit of its ability to generate that income through that broadened scope. The money that SAB Zenzele Kabili is getting comes entirely from AbinBev. So it only makes money through the dividends that AbinBev is paying to SAB Zenzele Kabili. AbinBev's dividend yield is 0.8%, which works out to roughly 50 euro cents per share. SAB Zenzele Kabili is going to own roughly 5.4 million shares, so they will be getting 2.2 million euros in dividends. That will then be split 75% to the company to cover administration costs, operational costs, the like, and 25% of that will go to investors depending on how much of the shares you own. So again, I feel like it's a little bit unclear since SAB Zenzele was 25% flat done, there you go, and this is 25% after operational costs and everything else have been considered and after debt has been serviced. And the debt is huge. 3 billion Rand of debt, and vendor funding has been used to build up this 0.3% stake in AbinBev shares, which is not a number to scoff at. Really, it is a huge amount of debt. So when you are buying SAB Zenzele Kabili, you don't personally owe that debt. You don't have to pay anything towards it, but the company is servicing that debt as part of its operations. So just bear in mind, when you buy the share, you are also buying a piece of the company's ability and need to pay off that debt. So, do I think it is a good investment? Straight off the bat, yes, I still think it is a good investment, all things considered. I just think the advertising around it is misleading. Also, the board have shot themselves in the foot in terms of distributing the shares, since they made a public announcement saying you can buy them on Easy Equities, and Easy Equities said we can't sell BEE listed shares, so no, you can't. So where can you find them? Your bank. As long as your bank isn't Capitec. The shares will be available at the 4 major banks that offer stockbroking accounts. But that also comes with fees. It's also been said that the shares can be bought through Investec, which we'll get into in a short while, and computer shares and equity something. I don't know anything about those companies. I wouldn't go near them. I would suggest phoning SAB Zenzele Kabili and letting them direct you directly. Go to the horse, get it out of their mouth. Okay, find that information from them, let them help you. Okay, but if you do decide to go through your bank, here's just something to consider. If you bank with Standard Bank, you will need to pay 110 Rand a month as management fees to have your brokerage account. You also need to put in a minimum of 10,000 Rand into your account as an initial investment. If you're with FNB, your monthly fee is 65 Rand, but your initial investment is 15. ABSA wanted me to download a web extension to get their pricing, so I'm not going to do that, and I can't give you any help if you bank with ABSA. I'm sorry. And Nedbank have a 70 Rand monthly management fee, and I couldn't find any information on what their minimum deposit was. If you go the suggested route, which is Investec, you need to buy a minimum of 250,000 Rand worth of shares, or deposit 250,000 Rand with them, which makes me question, honestly, who is this scheme really for? Who is the target audience? Is it the person sitting in Sandton who has 250,000 Rand lying around, or is it the average South African who has gone through a pandemic and cannot afford to be putting 15,000 Rand on average just into an account to sit for who knows how long? That is something that I have been struggling with, reading through all of these prospectus. That is a major question that I haven't found an answer to, because it's being advertised to the retail investor, but the retail investor is used to platforms like Easy Equities, where you don't need to pay a monthly minimum, you pay per transaction. And by making people buy shares through a bank, I feel like the SAB Zenzele Kabili board has taken the results from the previous scheme, crammed it into a box, taken retail investors and thrown them under a bus. I believe that it is building up hopes which I just don't see being able to be realized, and that's not fair. In conclusion, I am still telling my family members who qualify as BEE individuals to put money into the scheme, if they can find a way that makes sense for them. If they have a brokerage account already, or if SAB Zenzele Kabili comes up with another way which is more accessible, since I haven't heard anything about banks being spoken to about waivering these insanely high fees, which, to be fair to the bank, isn't fair to the bank. The bank is not the one coming up with this scheme. So it's kind of a rock and a hard place. I'm still telling my family, if you would like to invest, you can, but just do it with clarity of thought. Don't be blinded by 100 Rand to 77,000. It is being thrown around everywhere, and I feel like it's blinding people to invest in this for the wrong reason. If you invest focusing on the dividend that you're going to be getting, reinvest that dividend it can be an incredible wealth creation tool. But you are not getting in at the ground floor. The ground floor was 10 years ago. You're getting in at floor 77,000. So bear that in mind, make a non-emotional decision. Don't look at the 100 to 77. There is still a lot more information that we could go into, but to keep this video relatively short, I'm not going to have time to go into that today. I would like to say, however, that if you do buy into the scheme, keep an eye on the underlying asset, which is AbinBev shares. The net asset value of your SAB Zenzele Kabili shares is 60 Rand. The shares are being listed at 40 Rand, so you are getting a 33% discount. The board would like you to believe that that is going to grow exponentially, but it is still based on what AbinBev is doing. Don't expect your shares to get to 100 Rand a share. That would be at almost 50% over what the shares are actually worth. AbinBev's share price has not been over 1,100 Rand in a long time, and actually dropped down to about 700 Rand within the last year. So your shares are linked to this share, but they are separate companies. Of course, if the price goes up because people are interested and buying into it, then it could reach 100 Rand, but it's not based on anything. Fundamentally, it's not worth that much. I'd like to thank Howzit for just suggesting I make this video on Friday when I said I was going to do it. He's like, hey, you should do a YouTube post. I was like, Mrs. MetEish is not going to be very happy with having to edit on such short notice, but good idea. So Howzit, thank you very much for the suggestion. And yeah, that is just my quick opinion on the scheme. I am still going to tell people to buy in. That 30% upside is still a big gain that you can make, and the dividend is really where the magic is going to happen in this scheme, I feel. It will be a long-term hold, but yeah. That's it for me. This is MoneyMetEish. Please feel free to go and check us out on Instagram at MoneyMetEish. Join the subreddit at r/MoneyMetEish. Join us on Facebook, MoneyMetEish. Just MoneyMetEish is everywhere. So yeah, this has been a long process, but I've really enjoyed it. If you would like me to look into any other company in general, leave a comment down below. If you think I am completely wrong and this share is going to go to 1,000 Rand a share as well and be one-to-one with AbinBev, let me know that too. Let's discuss. If you think I've missed anything important about this share, please comment down below and let me know. So yeah, that is me saying thank you and goodbye.